Welcome to the Kansas City Public Library. My name is Stephen Woolfolk. I am the Assistant Director of the Public Affairs Department here at the library, and I'm honored to have played some small part in bringing my mom's favorite baseball player to the Kansas City Public Library tonight. Before we get started, you'll have to indulge me. I want to take just a minute to acknowledge a friend and colleague who recently reached a new career milestone. Many of you who are regulars at the library have probably met Lorenzo Butler. Lorenzo and I started at the library about 7 years ago, on the same day actually, although for the last 7 years I have teased him, saying that I am the senior writer because I walked into the office 15 minutes before he did. There are three things that you should know about Lorenzo. One, he's very good at his job. If you've seen us in the newspaper, if you've heard our people on the radio, if you've seen anything about the library on television, that's because of the hard work that he has done behind the scenes over the years to get us there. Two, I have it on good authority, and by good authority I mean from Lorenzo himself, that he was once so fast that if he'd ever learned how to swing a baseball bat, Willie Wilson's record for inside the park home runs would not stand today. Three, he has been a tremendous friend to me for the last 7 years. I thank him for that. Tonight is the last time you will see Lorenzo at a library event. He has accepted his dream job as the public relations director for the Sacramento Kings. So, good luck, brother. God bless. But on to tonight. We're going to have a great lineup of speakers before Willie and Kent come out tonight. First up will be Bob Kendrick, president of the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. He will be followed by former Philadelphia Philly and Chicago Cub Bobby Dernier. And finally, Ascend Books publisher Bob Snodgrass will introduce the main event. Before we get to that, a few notes. Near the end of the program, there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions. We'll bring microphones down to the end of the aisles here. We ask that you use those, both so that your fellow audience members can hear the question and so that the folks running the cameras in the back can pick those up for the video that will be posted to the library website in a couple of days. Once the Q&A ends, there will be a chance for you to get your book signed. And of course, I'm sure you noticed copies are available right outside here, courtesy of our friends at Ascend Books. At this point of the evening, I would have to put on my bad guy hat. Unfortunately, I won't do it literally because I don't own anything with the St. Louis Cardinals logo on it. But Willie is a super nice guy, and he would stay here all night signing everything that you have. But us poor library schlubs have to be back at it at 8 o'clock in the morning. So we've struck a compromise. If you buy a book tonight, Willie will sign your book, and he'll sign one additional item as you come through the line. So with that, let's get started. It's my honor to introduce the first speaker tonight. If you've not been to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum in the 18th and Vine District, shame on you. Get out there as soon as you can. Some of you probably already know this, but just in case you don't. When you go home tonight, a lot of you will turn on the baseball game. Hopefully you'll be cheering for the Pirates. But while you're watching it, I want you to think about this. Had it not been for the Kansas City Monarchs, you might not be watching baseball in prime time. Why is that? Because the Kansas City Monarchs were the first professional baseball team in any league to play night games. In fact, they traveled along with their own lighting system so that they could play night games both at home and on the road. So think about that, and join me in welcoming a man who has dedicated himself to educating the public about the contribution Negro Leagues players and teams have made not only to baseball, but American culture in general, the president of the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, Bob Kendrick.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, and good evening. All right, we're going to try. Seems like every time we have these gatherings, we go through this same exercise. I say good evening. The response is supposed to be? All right, thank you, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. And, this is a very special night for all of us at the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum because Willie is such a dear friend of the museum. And for those of you, if you've been to the museum, and for those of you who have not, there's a wonderful passage when you enter into the gallery at the Negro Leagues Museum, and the passage which is taken from the Roman Catholic Bible, Ecclesiasticus. It simply says, "My son, if you aspire to be a servant of the Lord, prepare yourself for testing, set a straight course and keep to it, and do not be dismayed in the face of adversity." That was the story of the Negro Leagues, and I think to a large part it has been Willie's story as well. The highs and lows of being a professional athlete. And for all of us at the Negro Leagues, I know Buck is smiling tonight because he loved Willie Wilson. Absolutely adored Willie Wilson, and he would always say there was nothing prettier than watching Willie leg out a triple at the K. He slapped that ball down in the corner and then run that thing out to third base like nobody's ever done it before. And I've never said this to him, and I know Buck would certainly agree with me. There is no question that Willie Wilson could have played in the Negro Leagues. There ain't no doubt about it. Absolutely. And you know, for me personally, this is a real honor to be here in front of you guys tonight and just to play a small role in this celebration of the release of Willie's book. And just a couple of weeks ago, to be down at historic 18th and Vine and be a part of a wonderful surprise that Helen pulled on Willie and for all of us and his friends to help him get his World Series ring back was something that I personally will never forget. And for all of us at the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, Willie started coming back from Toronto to serve as host of Legends Luncheon, a monthly luncheon series that we do when Buck O'Neil passed away. And he started coming back every month to host this event. And it was something that meant a lot to us. It is something that means a great deal to us. And so for all of us at the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum to play a role in this evening means a great deal. So Willie, on behalf of the entire staff of the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, our board of directors, and certainly in memory of my dear friend, the late, great John Buck O'Neil, who I know is smiling down, man. Congratulations on a wonderful life, a great book, and we look forward to many, many more experiences with you being a part of the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum family. Thank you all very much.
Good evening, everybody. I was told to introduce myself. I'm Bob Dernier, former Raytown South Cardinal. Also, a quick note. I want to introduce a lady who had her 80th birthday on Monday this week. My mother, Jean's out here somewhere. Mom, stand up real quick. Where you at, Gino? Oh, there she is. Okay. Boy, there's a lot to say in no time. I suppose I should ring it, but I brought a couple of cards to remind me of a couple of things. First of all, I'll speak about Willie as a man. I certainly know him as a baseball player as well, but I first met him on my front porch in I think it was 85 or 86. And I lived in Blue Springs. I was playing, of course, in home in the winter. Actually, late October, it was Halloween, and our kids went to school together. We hadn't met. He walked up on my front porch. He was dressed like a sheriff. And back then, I can't remember what movie it was. It might have been an Eddie Murphy movie or Blazing Saddles or something, but the word was, there's a new sheriff in town. So I thought that was pretty cool. That's how I met him. But it wasn't until years later in 2000, I think 2002, and I really got to know who he is. And we did some kids camps together out in Summit, New Jersey, where he grew up. And of course, I grew up here in Raytown, so we infiltrated Raytown at the same time over that 3-year period, I think. We did kids camps during the day in Summit. I think it grew from 3 to 8 weeks in a row, Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we play golf. And we talk about, golf and real life and how I thought that Kansas City missed him. And I'm a Kansas City fan football, baseball, you name it. So I told him quite simply, if you have the opportunity, don't forget that there's unconditional love here from the people of Kansas City. And now we have him back. Okay. So, yeah, I agree. And I'll just finish off by saying that I'm a music guy. All my buddies know me as that. I like to play music. I like to sing and can't sing, but Willie can sing. I won't ask him to. And that's why I wrote a couple things. I'm just going to use this one thing. Because when I think of Willie, well, in the words of Jimmy Buffett, any Jimmy Buffett fans in here? Okay. Simple line, I won't tell you the song, but it goes, I think of Willie as a dreamer of dreams and a traveling man. I have chalked up many a mile. Read dozens of books, that's why we're here, about heroes and crooks. And I've learned much from both of their styles. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Bobby. Greetings, everyone. My name is Bob Snodgrass. I'm the publisher with Ascend Books. And on behalf of our publications team, welcome this evening. I think we have a very special program for you. It is my job to introduce the two main participation people here that you've all come to see. So without any further ado, I want to tell you about Kent Pulliam, who worked with Willie throughout this project, and I'm sure he'll share some of his times with Willie as they get started here. But Kent spent 30 years as a sports journalist with the Kansas City Star, and I'm sure a lot of you have read Kent Pulliam over the years. Several awards from different associations and the Associated Press over the years. Kent has worked with us on a number of books. He did a book with KU quarterback Todd Reesing a few years ago, and had to get in the mode of being Todd Reesing before he became the voice of Willie Wilson in this book. He also wrote another book called For Wildcats Fans Only. So we had him on the K-State side of the thing for one moment, and then we had him on the KU side for another. So that is Kent. He lives here in Kansas City. And like I said, this is his third book. Willie, so much an icon in our community. Willie, is, as you know, is a member of the Kansas City Royals Hall of Fame. He is a World Series champion, which is kind of a neat thing in this town, huh? Played an integral part in both of the Royals World Series appearances. He's won 2 Silver Slugger Awards, the first in 1980, and he is also a Major League batting champion, hitting .332 in '82. He has appeared in multiple All-Star games, as you know. So without further ado, help me welcome to the stage a wonderful wordsmith in Kent Pulliam and World Series champion and author, Willie Wilson.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
That's your deal.
It's like we're like a talk show game or something, a talk host. I feel like Johnny Carson.
For Willie from the state of Missouri. So Phil?
Wow. It's a heck of a week, man.
All right. No, sit down. Sit down. You're fine. Good evening. My name is Phil Lavoda. It's my honor and privilege to be here tonight to deliver a special message from the state of Missouri to my friend Willie James Wilson. I'm subbing for my little brother, Senator Paul Lavoda, who couldn't be here, but is here in spirit, as is Governor Nixon and everybody else who wants to say great things about you. Y'all remember where you were 28 years ago tonight? We were watching this man lead us through the playoffs and get us to our World Series win over those doggone Cardinals. And we couldn't have done it without him. And the state of Missouri knows that. So it's my pleasure to deliver a special message from the state of Missouri. And then bear with me, I have a proclamation we're going to present to him, but it has a lot of good things to say, so bear with me. It's a lot of whereases and stuff. Whereas the members of the Missouri Senate occasionally pause in their diverse daily activities in order to recognize Show Me State residents who have proven down through the years to be exemplary citizens in local communities and neighborhoods. Whereas Willie James Wilson of Kansas City, Missouri, a native of Summit, New Jersey, who was drafted by the Kansas City Royals baseball team as the 18th pick in the first round of the 1974 amateur draft, and who debuted in his first Major League Baseball game on September 4th, 1976. Whereas a three-sport athlete at Summit High School, Willie Wilson, gave up a football scholarship to the University of Maryland in order to sign with the Kansas City Royals, and made his way through the Royals minor league system as an outfielder and switch hitter. Whereas Willie Wilson led the league in stolen bases in 1979, his first season as a full-time player in the majors, in plate appearances in 1980, when his 705 official at-bats were a major league record that lasted until 2007. And in batting average in 1982, when his .332 average won him the batting title. Whereas Willie Wilson left the Royals following the 1990 season and subsequently played 2 seasons for the Oakland Athletics and 2 seasons with the Chicago Cubs before appearing in his final game on May 16, 1994, and retiring with a .285 career batting average and 668 stolen bases. Whereas, in addition to being named as an American League All-Star player twice, and to the Sporting News American League Silver Slugger team twice, Willie Wilson won a Golden Glove Award and is a member of the Royals Hall of Fame. Whereas, Willie Wilson now is the head of the Willie Wilson Baseball Foundation. Willie shares his experiences with inner-city youth to help them avoid the emotional and financial pitfalls and missteps that plagued his early adult years. And whereas Willie Wilson has written a book titled Inside the Park, Running the Base Path of Life, which will debut at the Plaza Library today. Now, therefore, be it resolved, we, the members of the Missouri Senate, 1907th General Assembly, join to applaud the personal and professional accomplishments associated with the life and work of Willie Wilson, and to convey to him this legislative body's most heartfelt best wishes for a highly successful launch of his book, and be it further resolved that the Secretary of the Senate be instructed to prepare a properly inscribed copy of this resolution for presentation to Willie James Wilson of Kansas City. Wow. Offered by Senator Lavoda, signed by Tom Dempsey, the President Pro Tem of the 97th General Assembly. Let's give it up for Willie Wilson.
Oh, wow. Oh, man. Thank you. Thanks, bro. Oh, wow. This is great. Take a picture of this. Thank you. Appreciate it. How about that, Kent? That's pretty cool. Thank you, State of Missouri. Oh, or should I say Missouri? There you go.
Well, whereas,
Excuse me, everybody. I got a little cold, so bear with me.
unlike many of the people who do books with autobiographies with someone else, I didn't know Willie at all before we started this project in February. I had never covered the Royals, but like everybody of a certain age in Kansas City, I'd followed Willie's baseball career, and I knew most of the baseball part of his story. I knew the batting titles, the World Series, I knew the drug involvement, I knew the jail sentence. And in doing my research before I ever met Willie, I had a certain kind of book that I thought that I wanted to be a part of and to help Willie tell the story. Thankfully, it was the same kind of book that Willie wanted to be told. And he wanted to talk about all of it, the good, the bad. He said something that stuck with me throughout the whole writing process, and that was that he had a really interesting story to tell. And I didn't know how interesting it was until I got into the actual telling of it, and he was really right. In a book like this, I think the most important thing that the with person can do is sort of stay out of the way and let Willie tell the story in as close to his own words as possible. So with that in mind, right now I'm going to get out of the way and first ask, why this book and why at this time?
Well, first, let me just say to everybody, Kent did a great job, don't you think? I think he did a really good job on the book.
Thank you.
I really like the way, there was three people that we were gonna try, excuse me, is that me? There's three people we were gonna try to write the book. Kent was the first one I saw, and I kind of liked the way he was real easygoing, and it kind of reminded me of me, easygoing. So we hit it off well, and I wanted to write a book first of all, I thought it was a good story. I mean, my life was up and down, and if anybody's known me, my life's up and down, you know how it was, but I also thought that I could help some people. And my main thing was maybe help some guy that's my age or some kids that are younger than me, or just people in general, to show that we all have problems. I was a baseball player and everybody else is an everyday, whatever they do in life, but I didn't think that everybody got put on stage like I did when I was playing. So that was the reasons I pretty much wrote the book. Kent pretty much put it in my words. There was a few changes, but he did a really great job, and that's the reason I wrote the book.
As a player, Willie had a little bit of a reputation of being difficult to interview.
Yes.
I didn't find that at all in this book, and in the process of writing it, I was asking him to remember some things that were really difficult times for him.
Right.
And I'm just curious, why are you different about talking about about anything now than you were when you were a player?
Well, you know, in the book, it tells a lot of stuff how I grew up. And, you know, my auntie down here, Martha, she's down here. For me, she was the first, her and my grandmother were the first people I knew as far as mothers were concerned in my brain. And, you know, when I did meet my mom, I didn't know her. So I kind of went inward. I got real quiet. So a person that's real quiet, all of a sudden you get a lot of attention. And if you're real quiet and you're real sensitive, people that talk about you, it hurts. And anybody that's sensitive know what words can do to you. So for me, you know, when someone came up to me 2 minutes after I stepped into the dugout or in the locker room and I'd struck out 4 times, I wasn't in a good mood. So, you know, it was real hard to just calm yourself down because, you know, when you want to do a good job and you fail, you're not in a good mood. And I don't care who you are. So it was real tough for me to be that way, but that's how I had to get through the season and through every day. But since I'd say about 2000 and God putting me with the right people, you know, I met Bobby Denier in '85, and years later we got together. Bobby put a lot of stuff in my head, and I always looked at Bobby because, you know, he's got that deep voice, and, you know, his kids are always around him, and I just felt like he had a lot of knowledge, and so that was the first person that kind of let me see a different side. And then just getting together with people here, meeting Bob Kendricks, who I knew through Buck, which I really love Buck. I mean, Buck was, God, I can't say enough about Buck. He was like a father figure to me. And so to be able to not take over for Buck, but to carry on Buck's legacy, it was such an honor. And so I just felt like, you know, it was hard for me to do a lot of stuff as far as autographs and people talking to me. I had to psych myself up every game to play. Can you guys imagine being mad every day for 6 years in a row? That's how I played. Every day I was mad. So, you know, that was pretty much it.
The other thing is, I don't know how many of you are familiar with how baseball operates, but the batting practice is open to all the reporters, and the locker room before the game is open to reporters up until about 15 minutes before. Willie didn't like to talk before the game either, and
No, I didn't like to talk before the game. I didn't like to talk after the game, but I did a lot of talking during the game. I was really vocal during the game. I would yell at pitchers, and I'd yell at players, and I'd yell and I'd say, "I said it, number 6, hit me, I'll steal second and third." So it was a lot of talking. But what I didn't do, you know, like, it was real hard that, you know, you have a photographer, and I'm shy. So when a guy's got a camera in my face like this, I'm trying to get away from him. And I'm trying to just take some batting practice and go about my business, but I didn't realize how big of a business that baseball was, and especially here in Kansas City, and especially when you're winning. And when you're winning, you have a lot more attention and people want your time. And I was always running away from other people. I was running away from trying to be in the public. I was running away from just basically trying to be a star. I didn't want to be a star. I just wanted to be an everyday guy. And the more I did, the more star power was coming and the more I was running. So it was just just clashing all the time. But I feel so much better now because I'm older. I don't have to play, which is great because I can just concentrate on you guys. And that's what I feel that I was meant to be in the beginning. I was like that in the beginning. And then one day we're playing a game and my daughter, she's sitting right there. Some guy, you know, we had to walk out the front door and there was no gates, no blocking off. We went right through the crowd. We couldn't go out the back because it was closed off. You couldn't go but so far, so you always were in the public. And so this guy, she had to be a month or so old, and he just ran in there to get an autograph and hit my ex-wife at the time, knocked her over, and I had to catch both of them. And for me, that was kind of the time I said, if an autograph is more important than a human life, then I'm not gonna sign. And that's why I was probably the toughest autograph to get over my career.
yeah, for any of you who might have tried back then, buy a book. He's more than happy to sign it tonight. So as you came through the minors, you don't feel like you were really prepared for what was
No.
going to happen to you when you got to the major leagues?
Nowadays, I really, you know, I get a chance to hang out with some of the minor league guys because I go down to spring training for a week and we hang out with the minor league guys. And the Latin guys are getting schooling, the American guys are getting taught different stuff. And back in the 70s, we were just taught to play baseball. We weren't taught to relate to people, or relate to the press, or relate to the fans. Our main job was to play baseball. And now, because it's such a big business, these guys are out in the city and they're doing more stuff, and it's great. And that's the guys who want to do it. There's certain guys that don't want to do it. And the guys you see all the time are the same guys pretty much, right? Billy Butler, you know, it's the same guys. Those are the guys who want to do it. The other guys don't want to do it because they just want to play baseball. But you can't do that nowadays. And we weren't taught that. We didn't have someone going, okay, the reporter's going to be here and you have to answer this way and so forth and so on. We would just look at a guy and he'd say to me, well, Willie, you struck out 4 times. How do you feel? And I'd just look at the guy and I'd say something that really hurt his feelings because he just hurt my feelings. So I'm like, what do you mean, how do I feel? What would you feel like, you know? And I wasn't that guy that, you know, I wasn't that easygoing guy that I wanted to be in the beginning. I just didn't know what to expect. And when I did find out what to expect, I just fought it the whole way.
Now you're also on the other side of it. You're a member of the
I'm a member of the
media.
press corps.
How do you approach it differently when you have to ask somebody a question now, whether it be a college game or something like that?
Well, you know, I do a lot of this with Metro Sports, the Blue Zone. Anybody read at Metro Sports? Yeah. You know, I've done high school games, I've done college games, and what I try to do is I try to go up to the person and ask them without a camera, without anybody else, the question. And then he can tell me if he wants to do it or he doesn't want to do it without being on camera so everybody else can judge how that person is. That's what I've learned from being a player going to the press corps.
Do you ever come into a situation where do you ever ask the question if he doesn't want to answer it?
No, not really. We don't ask a whole bunch of questions, but when I do ask, I really kind of try not to put myself in that situation. And maybe one day I'll be in that situation that I have to ask a guy a question, but I'll try to say it in a calmer or maybe a not so demeaning way. But I know now, which I wish I would have known back then, you know, you guys got a job to do. And you got to do your job. You got to ask a quick question. You got to get it in before the papers the next day. I understand that now. But before, it was just, are you crazy asking me some kind of question like that? And that was a good answer. I had some bad answers.
Yeah, I've
for
heard
you.
some of those
Yeah,
bad
I wasn't
answers.
the most friendly guy. But I was two guys though. I was that guy playing before and after a game, and I was a completely different guy when I wasn't playing. I was the happy-go-lucky guy when I wasn't playing, but when I was playing, I was so tense and so into, I didn't want anybody coming in. What did some person say? They're messing with your groove. You know, they were just I had a certain way I wanted to go about it. But I knew that if I didn't go about it that way, and if I hit 250, I was gonna go home. You see what I'm saying? It wasn't like I could hit 250 and just be happy. I don't know anybody hits 250 and happy. Well, maybe if they're getting 30 million, that might be. But that was the way I really went about it. And I had a football mentality. And I played football, and football was you could work yourself up all week to really take it out on somebody on one day during the weekend. Well, I was like that every day. I mean, I'd psych myself up driving to the ballpark. And then if the pitcher struck me out, I'd yell at him, I'd scream at him, and I'm trying to make him throw me a fastball.
Hopefully not in your ear.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, the weapon I had was my legs. If they hit me, I felt like I was going to steal second or third. And I would always give you, it really hurt so bad, and I'd limp to first. Like, oh, I just can't run to first. Oh. And then I'd take off, you know? So.
In talking with people, I think you're one of the few guys, you know, the announcers always talk about getting a runner into scoring position so you can do that.
Right.
When you were on first, you were in scoring position.
I thought I was.
Isn't that how you thought about
I
it?
thought, you know, it's a different mentality because in those days we had to get to the playoffs in the World Series to make some extra money. You know, a lot of us were working in the wintertime, you know? So the extra money that was our incentive. So for me, I always thought I could score from first. I always would, if George came up, I didn't want to move because I left a big hole over there for him. And if he hit a double, I was going to score anyway, so why would I have to go to second? But that was only for George. Really.
Kind of a little-known stat with George and Willie is that 321 times, George knocked Willie in to score a run. That's the second most of any two teammates since 1950. So we're in scoring position. The other thing that you might explain to people is in '79, Willie set the Royals record for stolen bases. You didn't really run that much after
No.
'79, and
Well,
can you talk about why that happened?
Yeah, I can talk about that, but it was the second, 79, it was 81 or 3, and then 80, it was 79 bases. But the reason I stopped running, it sounds stupid, but it was Hal McRae. Hal was standing at home plate, and I was jumping around at second base, and the uniform's white, the ball's white. He couldn't see the ball come out of the uniform. So he stepped out of the box, this is a funny story, and he goes, "Hey, stand still." And I'm looking at him, and he goes, "I'll get you in." And the pitcher turns around and looks at him like, I didn't hear him just say that, so the next pitch is kind of at his head. And, you know, he falls back, and you know how he just gets back up, doesn't even brush himself off. You know how he used to have this high butt, he'd stick it up. And then he just went, boing, hit it the right field, and I scored, and that's why I stopped stealing third.
Hal also was part of what made the Royals go in terms of the attitude that he brought to the play. Can you tell everybody where you were when the Hal McRae rule was instituted and how that sort of, you learned to be sort of Hal McRae on the base path?
Aggressive. Hal McRae was aggressive. He brought the Cincinnati Reds, the mean machine kind of attitude over to the Royals. When I first got there, Big John Mayberry was the man. And, you know, Big John was hitting home runs, and Hal just come over. And we had guys, John was from Houston. We had basically a National League team. Freddie was from the Pittsburgh Pirates. Amos Otis was from the New York Mets. So we just had a bunch of guys that got drafted from other teams because the Royals were new,
Right.
and they came over. Well, when John left, Hal was our guy. I think George would tell you to this day, he learned how to play from Hal McRae. Hal was the one who, if you felt like you were hurt, he would come over in a sergeant's jacket uniform, but he'd be in the laundry basket, and he'd have everything on top of him, and they'd wheel the laundry basket to your locker, and then he'd pop out, and then he'd shoot you, and he'd just go, you can't help us anyway, so why don't you go home? Well, he's psychologically turning me around, right? I'm like, oh, well, I'm playing, man. What are we talking about, you know? So, and at the end of the game, he said, I knew you'd play. And so he would put that psychological stuff on us that, you know, we were just, that's why I think George was so helpful to the Royals this year. He didn't do anything physically. He just talked mental baseball to them. So, you know, Hal was like that for us.
And in the playoffs with the Yankees,
Playoffs, it was...
I don't know if you all remember this, Hal took
out Willie Randolph.
and I think he took him
And,
like halfway to the left
well,
field fence.
Freddie was on second, and Hal was on first. And he said to Freddie, when I take him out at second, I want you to go all the way home. And he's on first base. So they're yelling at each other. So a ground ball is hit. Hal McRae never slid. He would just barrel into a guy like that. And when he barreled into him, he pinned the guy down, and he was going like this to Freddie, go home. So the next year, they come up with, you have to slide at second base, and you have to be able to touch the bag with your hand or your foot. And that was unofficial, the Hal McRae rule.
You also slid into second base the same way every time.
I tried to slide always to the outside part of second base. mainly because I could see where the ball was. You know, I slid on my right side, and I would look, and when the ball was up or down on the ground, I'm trying to find where it's going. And then I could pop up and go to third. But if I went like this every time, what I'm trying to tell the young players is, what do you hit with? Your hands. What do you feel with? Your hands. All right, what do you throw with? Your hand. If I'm going like this, and the ball's up high, and the guy jumps up in the air, his spikes are coming down right here. All right? Now, you're not helping our team when you're hurt. And you're not helping our team because you got your face down, dirt's flying in your face, and if the ball goes into center field, you're lying there like this. So now you're not taking advantage of the overthrow, and so that's why I slid the same way all the time. Now, nobody told me this. This is just something you pick up because you're looking at other guys, how they play, who can I beat, how do I take an advantage of one simple little thing. And that's how you get to the big leagues, taking advantage of what God has given you and then doing a little bit more.
One of the things that you did as a player a lot, and I have to admit I was part of this scene, in 1982 when you won the batting title, at the end of the season, you didn't play the final game.
Yes.
And when Robin Yount had a great day in Baltimore that day, the story became, because there were all these shenanigans at the end of the game, that the Royals they delayed the game to see what Yount did on his final at-bat to see whether Willie had to go into the game and get a hit. The Chiefs were on strike that year, so I happened to be covering that game. That's the story that I wrote, and I know you were not happy about that.
Well, I wasn't happy about anything, basically.
Well, yeah, but the point I'm getting to is that as a player, many of the things that went wrong, went bad, you in some ways blamed on other people.
Yes.
I mean, it was my fault that that story didn't get told the way you wanted to. It was.
Yeah, but you know, that's something that I come to realize that, you know, that you can't do anything about it. But I did want to make sure it was in the book a little bit, I think. Did
Yeah,
we put it in the book?
yeah, we did put that. Not
But-
that I was the guy who wrote that story, but.
But, you know, the
But in fact, the first time we talked, I made sure that he knew that because I didn't think he would accept me as the guy to write his book.
I don't
But-
hold grudges anymore, Kent.
Well, that's the point. One of the things that you seem to have changed is you've come to grips with you accepting the responsibility for all the stuff that's gone on in your life. How did that come about, and how's that changed you?
Well, I mean, it came about because, you know, you got things going so bad for you, you can either go way, way down and kill yourself, or you can try to think of something else to make yourself go forward so you can succeed. And I was never a guy, I didn't think, that would give up completely. There was always some kind of hope in me that maybe I get to know myself a little bit better and be the person that I thought that I could always be. But you know, I did blame a lot of stuff on everybody else. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to write the book, to say that, you know, as long as you blame everybody else, if you've got one finger like this, there's three pointing at you. So you got to look at yourself first before you can judge anybody else. And it took me probably till about 2000 to really kind of look at it that way. And I blamed a lot of things on a lot of people, but you know, when you look at it from a different side, because if you're looking at something one way all the time and expecting something to change, you know, you just got to be crazy. So I had to look at it a different way to make a change. But that day with Robin Yount, I walked into the locker room and I was hurt a little bit that year. I think I played 130.
Yeah, actually, you missed the first 45 games, I think, because of the hamstring
Pull. And so I'd qualified with at-bats, I'd qualified with hits, all that kind of stuff. And I still played 130-some consecutive games. Excuse me. So I'm leading the league, which I didn't really know I was leading the league, but I kind of figured it out the last couple days. And so I come in the ballpark, I'm ready to go play. I can get one hit if I can bunt, get jammed, whatever. AstroTurf, hit it up high, I'm gonna get one hit somehow so that Robin has to get more hits than that, because all I needed was one. So I come in the locker room, and Dick's in the locker room, and John Shearhouse is in Dick's office with him, and I walk in, and at that particular time, the front door was here, and manager's office was straight left. As soon as you came in, left, manager. So they called me in there, and Willie, we want you to sit out. Robin has to go 3 or 4 for 5 or something like that, or whatever, and I go, well, what, you guys don't think I can get a hit? Like, what's happening here? I want to play. So, you know, being young, I just let the GM and the manager talk me into not playing. So, but this is the good part, though. This is why I love Billy Martin to this day. Billy Martin was with the Oakland A's at the time, and he knew what was going on. Now, you wouldn't think another manager on another team knows what's going on at the batting championship, but he does. So the phone rings, and they go, Robin's 1 for 1. Phone rings, Robin's 2 for 2. Phone rings, he made it out. Then all of a sudden, Robin's 3 for 4. And then I got it, and then somebody goes, Willie, you got to grab a bat. So we were a little bit behind the East Coast, game-wise, so we needed to delay the game so that we knew what Robin did on his last at-bat. So our phone rings, but it's not from upstairs, it's from across the dugout over there, and it's Billy. And he's talking to Dick, and they knew each other. So he goes, you want me to delay the game? And I hear Dick go, yeah, go ahead. So Billy gets up, walks out to the pitcher, and the pitcher's looking at him like, what are you doing out here? You know, like, I'm not doing anything bad. And Billy starts talking, and the phone rings. Robin lines out to center field. So we whistle to him. Billy looks over, and we go like this. Billy walks off. I tip my hat to Billy. Billy tips his hat back. That's how I won the championship.
There aren't a lot of anecdotes in the book because Willie wanted to make a different message with the book, but I heard him speak a couple of weeks ago at the Negro Leagues Museum, and he tells this great story about him and Nolan Ryan.
Yes.
And it serves a dual purpose because, one, it's a great story, but secondly, it passes one of the messages
Yes.
that you like to pass along. Could you share that? This is not in the book, so.
This isn't in the book, so this is just right here with you guys. Nolan Ryan was a guy that when I was living in New Jersey, he played for the New York Mets. And they won the World Series, and you know, I went to the World Series. I snuck out of school, went to the World Series. I got in big trouble, but I really like Nolan Ryan. And so now he's with the California Angels now, and a couple of years, 2-3 years, I'm in high school, but now I'm in the big leagues. So I get initiated in the big leagues, and in those days, they drank. So I had 5 vodka and orange juices lined up, and I didn't drink. So I finished 2, and I'm a little woozy, and they sit there and make me finish them.
This is your teammates.
Teammates.
Yeah.
So that's how they initiate the rookies coming into the big leagues, and back in the 70s. And if you really look at it, a lot of guys back in the 70s were alcoholics. I mean, I don't want to say that in a bad way, but that's what happens when you're around that stuff a lot. So anyway, I got a little hangover the next day. I never drank, so I get there, and so now they know I'm going to play, but I don't. Say, Willie, you ready to play? I'm like, yeah, sure. Who's pitching? And they go, Nolan Ryan. And I'm like, oh, God. Nolan Ryan, okay. And then I'm young, so I'm brash. I'm like, who cares? Nolan Ryan, you got to throw it across the plate like everybody else. So I'm batting ninth. I want to get on. Bunting was part of my game. So I squared the bunt and made a mistake and fouled it off. And Nolan starts yelling at me. I mean, he starts calling me every name, cuss word. I'm like, wow, man, this Nolan, is he talking to me? And I was like, wow. So next thing I know, I get ready to get in there again, and here it comes. About 100, about right here. And instead of going like this, I went this way. And my legs flipped up, bat hit the ground hard, my helmet flew up. So now I'm down there surveying. Am I hurt? Am I hit? And I didn't even see the ball. I just got out the way. And I opened my eyes, and about 2 feet up is Nolan Ryan standing there. He's got the ball in his hand. He's rubbing it up. He goes, don't you ever blankety blank blank bunt on me again. And I looked up at him. I went, okay. So now, you know, I'd faced him before. I never bunted on him. And now I'm with the Oakland A's, and Texas and us are trying to win the division. And Nolan's pitching. So here we go again. I'm leading off the 7th. I got to get on. So I'm a bunt. So I square around the bunt. It's a ball 1, but I take it back, and he starts yelling at me. You blankety blank blank. And I'm like, oh, God. I look at Pudge Rodriguez. I go, is he talking to me? And he goes, yep. So, all right, so now I'm a little bit older. I'm in my 30s. So I go, forget him. He ain't going to do nothing. I got to get on. We need a run. So it gets to be ball 2, fake a bunt, ball 3, strike 1, and now I know a fastball's coming. So now I'm just trying to be loose and just get a good pitch. Throws one about right there, and I'm like, yeah, and I hit it to right center. Now I'm rounding second. He's got to back up third. And I keep yelling at him from second all the way to third. Keep calling me a blankety blank, blank, blank like this. I get to third base, I stop, and the people start throwing stuff at me. How can you yell at a legend? I'm like, are you guys watching the same game? What's going on? So we ended up, you know, we could get 1 out, but we end up scoring 2 runs that inning. It's the 7th, so I got to get up again in the 9th. So I'm on the bench. I look at everybody on the bench, and there's Jose, McGuire, Ricky, Dave Stewart, all these guys, right? Dave Henderson. I go, you know he's going to hit me, right? In unison, they all go, yep. So I go, you know what? Don't nobody come out. You know, we got a championship to win. I don't want to see anybody get thrown out of the game. Just let him hit me. So I walk up to the umpire, and I tap him on the butt, because I used to say to umpires, you know, if you get in friends with them, you can, you know, hit 300. Because think about it. So I tap him on the butt, and I go, you know he's going to hit me, right? He goes, yep. So I don't even dig in. I just step in the box, and I'm ready for it, right? Oh, he's going to hit me. And he throws one right there. The umpire goes, and I go, oh, not going to hit me. And so I start digging in. I go like this, the next pitch, yow, he hit me right there. And I'm going, don't let him know it hurts. Don't let him know it hurts. And I take a step, and I just go to my knees. It hurt. Actually, it hurt me for 2.5 weeks. I had a mark right there. That's how hard he threw it. So the umpire looks at him, and he goes, you, get out of the game. He goes, for what? I hit him all the time. And that was the first and only game Nolan Ryan got thrown out of. But my message to all the people is, you know, we concentrate so hard on other people's accomplishments. We forget about ours. And so my thoughts were always on Nolan Ryan. But I had to imagine that Nolan Ryan was thinking about my accomplishments too. That's why he was trying to intimidate me. So when you think about other people's stuff more than you think about yours, you're forgetting what you're good at and what you're capable of doing. So that's my message.
I want to cover two things, and then we'll open this up for questioning. But when you were selected for the Royals Hall of Fame, at the time you were at a pretty bad place in your life.
Right.
What did that mean to you to get into the Hall of Fame?
Well, at the time, what it meant was that I was getting noticed, but also it meant that everything else really didn't matter, you know, at the time. It's an honor to be there. I was honored in one half. In the other half, I was going through so much mental stuff and physical stuff that I really couldn't enjoy it. But it was, and actually the same day was the same day that they said that I was going bankrupt. So one side of the paper has Willie going into the Hall of Fame, and the other side has me going bankrupt. And I told the guy that was a reporter. Now you know why I really had some deals with reporters. I said, you know, can you do me a favor? Can you just hold off one day so I can enjoy this day? And he put it side by side. So that's what I'm saying. When people are writing that kind of stuff about people, you don't know what it does to people. You don't know what you say does to people. And even though you look at a baseball player or a football player or anybody plays sports, you basically look at them the same. They're making a lot of money. But money doesn't solve your problems. So, you know, the guy just did that, and I thought it was such a bad thing that he did, and it was part of why I was thinking the way I was in the beginning of the book. So.
The other thing is about 2 weeks ago, I think, Willie was at an appearance at the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum.
Yes.
When we talked in the chapter about the bankruptcy, one of the things Willie had to do was sell all his baseball memorabilia, the silver slugger bat, the silver shoes for winning the stolen base title, all the memorable baseballs, and his World Series ring. And throughout the process of the whole book, the only thing that he said that he really missed, because everything else was just stuff you put on your walls, was not having the World Series rings. And with the help of some friends, Helen
Moore. Right here is Helen Moore. She is one of the best people I know, and she really took it upon herself to focus on what she had to do to get me my World Series ring back, and I can't thank her enough. Kellen, stand up, let everybody see. Stand up.
So Willie makes his speech, and he tells the Nolan Ryan story, which is the first time that I had heard that. Now you're standing there. Helen gets up to make the presentation.
Well,
I don't think he had any idea what was going on, but when the box was open, what was your reaction to that?
You know, I kind of saw the box down there, and I had an inkling of that could be a ring, but I didn't really know. And I don't even know how a whole city could keep this a secret. I mean, really,
It was in the
paper.
It was on
so
the
that
TV.
shows you I'm on the golf course all the time. But I don't read papers hardly. I really don't watch. I watch the news, but that's in the morning. And you know, I travel a lot, and every time I traveled, I guess she would go on the site and do what she had to do. A couple guys almost gave it away though. But when you're not thinking about receiving a World Series ring, it doesn't come to you. You know, people can say stuff and it just goes right over your head because you don't have that in your brain. And one guy said, he goes, you know, all those times I canceled in golf? I go, yeah, he goes, I knew about it, but I knew I couldn't keep a secret. So he would cancel. And where's Doc at? Where's Doc? Where you at, Doc? Doc, where? Hey, he's back there. Andy, where you at, man? Andy almost gave it away, too. He calls me up. I'm in Toronto, and he goes, he said to me, he goes, you know, there's an article in the paper, something about your ring. And I said, I don't know, Doc. I'm not there. I don't know what's going on. So I call her, and then she quickly says, oh, there's nothing in the paper. I looked it up. And so she lied to me the whole time. But
So
when I saw it, it was so many emotions running through me. The bad times, the good times, wearing it again. I mean, I wore it that night and I took it off for about a week because I wasn't used to wearing it. You know, I just didn't, everybody would say, where's your ring? And I was like, oh, I forgot, it's at home, you know? So I cried. I still feel the emotions right now. I mean, it's the best thing, well, one of the best things that's ever happened to me since I've been back.
I think we can open it up for questions now, and we've got microphones down here on either of the aisles, and if you have questions, could you please come down so that everybody in the room can hear the question?
Thank you, Willie, for everything you did for Kansas City.
Oh, thank you, I appreciate it, thank you.
I'd like to know who you thought were your best and worst managers and why.
Wow. You know, my best manager, for me, and it's just a personal thing, was Tony La Russa. You know, I loved Dick Hauser, and I loved Whitey Herzog, but Tony, he did things different than all of them. And the most thing he ever did was he treated me like a man. He didn't treat me like I was working for him. He didn't treat me like I was a farm hand, you know, doing some kind of little job. He treated me like a man, and family was first. And so and if you ever look at Tony La Russa's record, he's always in a World Series, and he always gets the best out of his players because he treats them as men. The worst manager I've ever had, I can't say any Royals manager was the worst manager. I played with the Cubbies, and I had 2 managers in 2 years. And one of them was our Ryan Lefevre's manager.
His dad.
And that was his dad. And, but he wasn't the worst. It was Treblehorn. And if you guys ever, you don't even know who he is, right?
Tom Treblehorn.
Treblehorn was a Milwaukee Brewer coach, and he was in several different organizations, but for me, he was the worst manager I ever had. And that's saying something, because I had some good ones.
Is he the one who set the 50% goal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said that our goal this year is to be a 500 club. What manager says our goal is to be 500? You know, your goal should be to be the last team standing every year. So there you go. Yes, sir.
It's my perception that speed is different today. Teams don't seem to run near as much. I don't see near as much hit and run, near as many stolen bases. I'd like to hear your thoughts on why the offense has changed.
You know, I really don't know why they don't steal a lot of bases. One thing I do know is there's less AstroTurf. And AstroTurf, back in the old days, your teams were meant to be quick. You had to be a quick person to play on AstroTurf. And if you didn't, you could see it right away, a guy was slow. Nowadays, I think it all started changing when they started taking steroids, because managers were getting 2, 3-run home runs. The stolen base didn't mean that much. Even the bunt didn't mean that much. And so I think that was the reason that they just stopped stealing. But the guys I know that can steal, you gotta like stealing. Okay, you gotta really like it because you're running as fast as you can and you're jumping on the hardest ground that you ever wanna jump on, because if it's soft, you're not gonna slide. So it has to be hard, and you have to be able to endure pain. And I'm talking about pain on your knees, pain on your hips, and just, you know, back pain because you're jumping, boom, and you're just boom, like this. And when you do it, say you do it 83 times, well, you might have done it 90 because you got thrown out maybe 8, 9 times. So, and then you're not talking about breaking up double plays, right? You're not talking just making a double slide, sliding in the second, or sliding in the home, or sliding in the, so you gotta like it. And if you don't like it, they're getting millions of dollars for 40, 50 bases. Who wants to steal 60, 70 when I can get 15 million for 30 or 40? So that's the difference that I see. And I was fortunate enough to play in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and I saw it change in the 80s. It went late 80s, it went from all young kids to 3 to 4 older guys, where in the 70s, 60s, it was 21 young old guys and 3 to 4 young guys. And to me, a good business, you got old guys teaching the young guys. How can a young guy teach an old guy? It just doesn't work. And when you got 21 young guys and 4 old guys, they just sit there like this. And that's why I think it's just a different game. Not better, just different. Yeah. Yes.
Good evening, Willie.
What's up, man?
Not much. My name is Phil Dixon. I was the assistant director of PR for the Royals. I'm working under Dean Vogelaar, the 3 of Willie's years. And one thing that I don't know if he mentions it in the book, but it was something I had the great honor of administrating. And that's after, you know, the incident with the drugs and that kind of thing. In terms of Willie's agreement, he was to give $1 million in free tickets every year.
Yep.
And I was the one who gave away those $1 million tickets for 3 years. And I can tell you, he put more people in Royal Stadium, including the year, which was 1989, that we had the largest attendance. 1 million of those people, or $1 million worth of those people, was because of that man right there. He can't get enough credit.
You know, I forgot about that, man. I forgot about that.
David should hire you back.
Yeah, I forgot about that. You guys owe me $1 million.
Well, it made a lot of Royals fans, and there are probably some out here tonight. Who knows?
Oh, well, thanks, man. I forgot about that. Yeah, thank you.
And one other thing, this is a question, because I have a lot of great memories. I used to work and come down the hallway, and Willie be in this long tunnel smoking his cool cigarettes down in there. You know, I have a lot of good memories, and one other memory I'll mention, and then I'll get to my question. The other one was, I remember during the pregame, Willie always wanted them to play some hip music. And I know he used to follow this band, I think it was Lulu or something like that.
It was Lupe?
Lupe, that's what it was. It was a local band. So anyway, he always wanted to play some hip music, and but they always fought him in the booth upstairs. So he bought some Cameo, and he wanted them to play, and they wouldn't play it. And Willie came to me, he said, "Can you believe it? They said it's too much cussing in Cameo." And of course, there's no cussing in Cameo. But I remember that. But the other thing I wanted to ask you, when Bo Jackson came to the team, and I can't remember how it ended, but there was supposed to be a race between you and Bo Jackson to see who was the fastest.
Yeah, I got it.
Can you comment on that?
Yeah, but I didn't, this was not, see, that's the difference. You see, I'm from Jersey right now. You got to get play on words. Now, I told Bo, I'll bet him $100 to race him for $100. Now, did you listen to what I said? I'm going to race you for $100. So Bo took off. I took one step, and I put my hand out. I said, "Give me my 100." He said, but I beat you. I said, "I didn't bet you I'd beat you. I bet you I'd race you. Now give me my $100. Of course he didn't pay me. You know,
There is a good little chapter in the book that has some Bo anecdotes that,
Yeah, Bo,
about when he
Bo
got
was
to the
the
team.
biggest, strongest, fastest. He was just a super athlete, man. And he was, you know, he was funny, but you ever try to play outfield with a guy that stutters? Think about it. Because he couldn't say, I got it. So he'd be going, and I'm like, you got it? Or do I got to come over? Or, you know. And then I asked him one time, I said, can you run, look at the wall, look again, and keep running? And he went, no. So I said, one of us is going to get messed up. And he goes, it ain't going to be me. Well, you know, Bo ran after a baseball like he was running after a football. So he couldn't see anybody in his way. So as an outfielder, you have to run, look, and run. Just run and look. And if sometimes you got to run to a spot and then look. But Bo would. And I'd be there like this. And I'm telling him I got it, and he'd go, shoo. I think it was
Okay, over
him.
here.
Willie, thank you for being here so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Did the Royals make a big mistake when they didn't move to the National League when they had a chance?
I don't know that, man. I'm an American League guy. I mean, this is American League right here. I don't want to. We've had too much success in the American League, you know, not lately, but over the years. And I don't know if being in the National League would help us because they got some boppers over there, man. I mean, that National League's tough. But I feel that next year's Royals, actually this year's Royals have learned. Even though they had an 8-20 May, they learned. Losing, you learn stuff. And so they learned that they got to go a little bit harder. They can't give games away, and they never take stuff for granted. Because if you win 5 more games, we're playing tonight. So, you know.
Willie?
Yeah.
You know, I've met you at T-Bone games. I
There you
enjoyed
go.
you. I've never met you at the ballpark.
There you go.
But I want to tell you, you the Royals back in the 70s and the early 80s, 85. Man, y'all just made Kansas City sweet. And I mean, Frank White was here last year. I told him the same thing. And we just enjoy you, man. I mean, it was Royals, man. It was Royals. It wasn't Chiefs. It was Royals. Okay?
All right.
I'm serious.
I
But
hear you.
I want to bring you back to 1977 in the playoffs. You played against the Yankees, right? And you struck out those 4 times. Thurman must have got on your butt, right? But then in 1979, you came back and
78.
proved. Well, hold up, Willie. But in '79, you came back and proved who you was.
Right.
He was around before he died, and he realized you was a good ball player. That's all I want to say.
Appreciate it. But you know, at the time, Thurman and Nettles were right at the time. I was basically a football player, but when he said that, what he said was, I couldn't hit, I could just only run. And so, you know, Craig Nettles is a great player, and we laugh about that now. And but Thurman, I felt really bad after he died because I had bad intentions when I hit him. I really wanted to hurt him. And when I was on third base, and I went in the pinch run, and all I heard was Thurman Munson, Craig Nettles, Thurman Munson, Craig Nettles. And then, you know, all the stuff they were saying about the Royals and us, and, you know, it just, being from the East Coast, I didn't like it. And so we had the contact play on. I was on third base. And that means as soon as the ball's hit, boom, take off. And you hope it's a ground ball. Well, this was a ground ball, but it was directly at Nettles. So I'm taking 3 steps, and I'm going to be out by 20 steps. So I see Munson grab the ball and step up to the plate. He didn't wait for me. He stepped up. So I said, okay, well, I got a 20-yard head start. So I just started running as hard as I could. And in those days, you know, we were tired of losing to the Yankees. I mean, we got 76, 77, 78. It's the Yankees, you know, one play. So when I hit him like I was playing deep back, and I was going to try to hit that receiver coming across the middle. And when I hit him, his mask flew off, and then he went boom on the ground. And then I jumped up and I went, "Come on, let's fight." And he looked at me like, "You're crazy." But he had 6 stitches right here. And we ended up having to go to New York, and my red light was on when I got to the hotel, and it just stayed on the whole time. I had about 5, 6 death threats. You hit our beloved Thurman Munson, we're gonna get you. We know what hotel you're in. We know what time the bus is gonna be coming there. And so you're just, I mean, if they're gonna get me, I mean, I'm on the baseball field, so that would be a good spot. At least they get caught. But it was just, that was tough, man, because I couldn't really prove myself that I could hit. So, Bobby D?
One more question.
Yeah, I got a quick one. Haven't played, I'm a National League guy, but I grew up here in Kansas City, so I definitely have an affection for the Royals. I played with a lot of Hall of Famers, including Ryan Sandberg and Mike Schmidt. As we know, in that era, Mike Schmidt and George Brett were the 2 greatest third basemen in the game. My opinion, during that era, Ryan Sandberg and Frank White were probably the 2 greatest second basemen in the game. I want you to talk about Frank a little bit.
Well, you know, Frank, you know, I love Frank, and don't tell him we used to call him Pootie. Because if you ever looked at Frank in his uniform, his butt was like, boom, boy. So we used to call him Pootie. And so Frank was the best. I mean, I saw Willie Randolph. He was good, but he couldn't get the balls Frank could get to. I saw Gantner over there in Milwaukee. He was all right. The only other guy I thought that was comparable to Frank was Robbie Alomar. He was the only other guy I saw that was comparable to Frank, because Robbie was after Frank. But Frank, we had played together so long, he had hand signals. If he was going to pick a guy off, he'd give it to me like this. So he's telling me, back me up. I'm going to go after him. If there was a guy fouling the ball off the right field, he'd go, "You see that?" I go, "Yeah, we move over 5 steps." So we're communicating all the time. And sometimes there would be a ball hit up the middle, and I'm charging like heck to get it, and Frank's like, boom. I go, "Wow, I love that guy." But Frank he was quiet. And we called him, I mean, you know, Pootie, but he was like a quiet assassin. You know, he didn't say a whole lot, but you knew he had drive in him, and you knew he wanted to win. And I tell you one good story about Frank, and this will sum up Frank. Jim Rice was at first base. Now, you hardly ever seen Frank get taken out at second. Frank got over him, around him, but he made the play. Well, this time, Jim Rice got there a little quick and kind of took Frank out. So Frank didn't say nothing. He just shook his head. All right, and I'm thinking, boy, something's gonna happen. So a few innings later, Jim Rice is on second again. This time the ball's hit a little bit harder. So Frank gets the ball like this, steps off the bag, and threw it directly at Jim Rice. Boom! He threw it so hard that it took 1 bounce and went to first base. Jim Rice is at halfway between second base on the ground like this. From that point on, Jim Rice never came close to Frank White. Because that's how Frank was. I'm not going to say much, but I'm going to get you back. And that's how Frank was, and Frank was just a really great guy. And you know, we did a lot of stuff together, Frank and I, but I can truly say he's one of my best friends.